What's the most disturbing secret you've been told? Girl I knew had just gotten fired from her job and was planning on jumping off a bridge. The job meant everything to her. I talked to her over 4 hours on the phone pleading with her and she eventually decided not to jump. So she went home and shot herself instead. Oh, geez. I am so very sorry. My best friend shot herself, too, after I had pleaded with her to get help. The guilt can be overwhelming, even years later. Please seek therapy. It helps. When I was about 10 years old, my mom told me that when she was 12 years old, she was in bed at night. She lived in Puerto Rico. She heard her mom and dad arguing in the kitchen. Her dad might have been drunk. I don't recall if my mom said she heard her mom screaming and then go silent. Her dad had stabbed her mom to death. He went to prison. My mom and her siblings got adopted out to other families. It was in 6th grade, and I was about 11 years old at the time. A girl in my class had been missing from school for quite a while. We asked our teacher what the problem was, but she refused to answer. We then kind of just let it slide and didn't think about it anymore. A few weeks later, there was a story in the news about a 12-year-old girl who had been impregnated by a 39-year-old man. We joked around saying that it was probably her, until she finally came to class one morning and told everyone that it was true. I have literally never seen a classroom that silent before in my life. As a young teenager, one of my closest female friend was raped by her cousin, who was the same age as her, multiple times over the course of 3 years. Eventually her father found out about this and a trial happened. That cousin ended up having nothing much more than a fine and kind of a warning, we watch over you now. This guy is now on the run to compete in the next Olympic Games, and my friend is freaking broken from the inside and barely able to trust males. I'm one of the few persons outside of the family who knows. In 1994, an now retired judge told me he and 2 childhood friends were responsible for the accidental death of a classmate down by a creek where they were playing one day. He had pretty much kept it to himself for a lifetime. May have had a role to play in his career choice. I've definitely heard of people going into law enforcement because of accidents early on in life that messed with their heads. Sometimes experiences like that can really push a person to want to do more good for the world. A guy I hooked up with in college had a breakdown when we were blackout drunk and essentially admitted to killing a guy who had taken advantage of his little sister and burying the body. He was a total wiener of a guy who was always trying to hype himself up and exaggerate to be a bigger, better, manlier person, so I didn't think much of it at the time. The timing would have made him a teenager and the man a full-fledged adult. It just felt like another bull's story he was always telling. But sometimes I think back and wonder if there's any truth to it. 50-50 I would say. If he was really drunk and never mentioned it ever again, then about 80-24. My classmate in high school. I thought he was pretty weird but also a nice guy. Turned out he's bipolar and he manages it with medication. But one time he was off it and he lost control in an argument with his little brother. He ended up beating the living crap out of the poor kid. Once he regained his senses and realized what he did, he tried to kill himself. I'm not sure how. He didn't specify. His dad was also an abusive drunk douchebag who occasionally beat him up. He told the story pretty calmly. I really hope he's doing much better now. That's a really sad situation. The poor guy had an abusive drunk as a dad and bipolar to deal with. Just bear in mind that abusive men often tell people they're bipolar, lose control and make suicide threats. That's a really sad home life he had. I feel for him. My friend was telling me about how jealous she was of her boyfriend spending time with one of his female cousins instead of her. Me. I mean, that's his family though. Don't you think you're being a bit psycho getting jealous of him spending time with his own cousin? Her. Well, he fricked his other one. Me. I'm sorry. What? Turns out he'd lost his virginity to a different female cousin when they were teenagers. My sister is married to a man that had 2 daughters by one of his cousins. One of the children, she thinks, was conceived during a threesome between them. My next door neighbor has recently been arrested and charged with historic child sex offenses and is awaiting trial. But because he has not gone to trial yet, we cannot do anything about it since innocent until proven guilty, even though we have a 7-year-old daughter that he has shown a keen interest in. We thought he was just a lonely old man trying to be nice. So now we have a few months wait to see what is going to happen. Have to resist the urge to tell anyone in the area, and even though it makes me sick, legally if I do anything I will end up in jail myself. So we have to just be very vigilant where he is concerned and keep him at arm's length without letting onto our girl that he may be a bad man. My homie's girl randomly told me her father used to rape her. That was the moment I realized the saying "they're your parents, they love you" is something I can't say to everyone, which was something I'd say a lot tbh. This girl I worked with over the summer told me how she burnt down her high school, and we worked at a summer camp. None of the parents knew the girl watching their kids was a freaking arsonist. That my cousin is sexually attracted to little girls. We were hanging around outside one day after dinner and he, 15, just let it all out. He said he didn't want to be like that he didn't want to be aroused by little girls, but he was. He said he has gotten aroused by a little boy before, but that he tries to block that out because he doesn't want to be gay. The exchange scared me because he had said his type was around 5-7-year-old girls with long blonde hair, which perfectly describes my little sister, who had been around him all her life. He was telling you so he could get help. Don't leave him alone with anyone. My father had 6 children from 4 different women. One he knocked up when he was married to his first wife. He put the child up for adoption in secret so his wife wouldn't know. The only people who knew were his mom and dad and the mother of the child's family. He lied to his current wife about the child when his second wife found the papers in his office while they were going through a divorce. 30 years later, 23 and reunited all, and he found out quickly this secret wasn't really so secret. Everyone in the family knew and just didn't say anything. The child put up for adoption was me. What really sucks for him is if he had just been open about it may have saved him many years of pain. That sucks. My dad had 11 of us to 5 different women, married 3 of them. The eldest was adopted out, but had his full birth certificate, so he found us. My dad told us about him, so that wasn't a surprise. My eldest sibling is over 50, the youngest is 15. I haven't met all of them yet. It would be great to all get together. I've told the story on here before, but a girl I worked with once told me about her first love. They dated for a while, fell madly in love and lost their virginities to each other. Her family situation was weird. Her parents weren't married, but when her dad was in town, her parents were a couple, and when he wasn't they weren't. Well, one of the times that he was in town, she introduced him to her boyfriend. They got along and got to talking, and he asked about the kid's family. After the kid went home, her dad told her she couldn't see him anymore. Turns out he was the kid's father. She'd unknowingly fallen in love with and lost her virginity to her half-brother. And yes, I know this also happened on an episode of House. I was told this story back in 1999 before that show was a thing. I found it out myself. My immediate older sister is cheating on her husband with my oldest sister's husband. Both the couple seem to be in a happy and healthy marriage with kids. WTF. That my aunt offered to adopt me when me and my brother were born. My mom didn't like girls, didn't want a girl, made it clear that she only had me because I was in there with my brother, and by the time she knew I was a girl there wasn't much she could do. My mom originally told her yes, and was fully prepared to hand me over, but after backlash from the family, as kids and our dad never knew about any of this until very recently, she decided to keep me to keep up appearances, and then lied to everyone saying said aunt had tried to take me away because she was jealous my mom had babies and she couldn't. Aunt had had 4 miscarriages by this point. My life could have been so much different if I'd grown up with someone who actually wanted me and didn't actively hate my existence and their lives. Sorry, but your mom is a selfish W. That my best friend's mom was gang raped, serially raped after being gambled as a commodity in a poker game by her husband, my friend's dad. I felt disturbed for a long while after hearing it. Still am. It's disgusting. A girl I was once close with, her father did a similar thing to her mom. Would bring her to the casino, drug her, then sell her for sex. She caught on when she caught VD. I guess she just thought she was drinking too much and had no reason to doubt him. My wife told me that one of her cousins is actually a baby bought from another family member who was too young to keep the baby. Selling 2010 model baby, like new in good condition. $500 obo. Serious replies only. My dad was introduced to and taught how to do various drugs by his dad. They once got really high together and had sex. My mom told me this because I had just came out to my dad as gay and he didn't respond in the way I had hoped. Happy Father's Day. This might be the single most fricked up thing I've ever seen on Reddit. My cousin had her first daughter with an old friend from high school after a one night stand. Turns out he is married and doesn't want the wife to know. My newest baby cousin is now about 3 I believe. No idea if his wife ever found out, but I'm the only one my cousin told. A couple of weeks before she died, my mom told me that my uncle, her brother, tried to rape her when she was asleep. I was at work at the time. When she told me, I had never felt rage like that. If he weren't in jail, I probably would have killed him right then. I never told my mom, but he molested me when I was 10. He's in another state now, but I never want to see him again. I hate that freaking piece of crap. That ending though. Hope you're doing better, bro. Good friend of mine told me his father molested his sister. I think I was more shocked he didn't share this sooner. It wasn't until he had kids that it all came out. Family secrets are dark. That my best friend has 12 months to live and doesn't want his family or friends to know. It's destroying me the way he's acting so normal. Wow, that sounds hard to deal with. I made an R4R post asking about secrets. A woman messaged me from a throwaway account. Deleted already. As a girl, she had sleepovers at her house all the time. Her father was well liked by parents and would spoil them with takeout and nail polish and whatnot. What actually happened is that come bedtime, her father would drug the girls, undress them, pose them with himself or each other, and take photos. If she didn't keep bringing girls over, her father would abuse her instead. I found that to be pretty disturbing. Or it could have been made up. That would be pretty disturbing too. Not as crazy as others, but I found out that my dad is actually my stepdad and my real dad left immediately after I was born. 18 years and still haven't met the guy. Woman I knew back in the 90s told me a story about how her ex-BF got her pregnant when she was 15. He didn't want to be a dad, so he threw her down a flight of stairs. Then he proceeded to violently rape her with a mop handle, bashing away at her womb as hard as he could. Then, just to make sure, he poured bleach into her vagina. She said she can never have sex again without extreme pain, and she'll never have kids. Good news is, the dude went to prison for like 14 years. He was like 25 at the time, so he got time for the statutory rape as well as the excessively violent assault. Guys like that should just be fed to wild dogs, though. Save the state the cost of jailing them. Prison is just going to make them meaner. I had to pause, look away, and wince at every sentence. Jesus Christ. Not really a secret, but it was something told to me once and then never discussed again. Close family friend had blocked some memories from her childhood, during which her grandfather did horrible things to her and her brother. She was fighting brain cancer as an adult and attributed her sickness in part to the repressed memories. I was told what happened to her, with details, and never shared it with anyone else. Use your imagination. It's worse than that. She died from cancer. People like that grandfather should be castrated and thrown to the wolves. Shortly after my third son was born, my grandma told me that my grandpa helped his brother-in-law cover up a murder back in the 70s. A guy that lived a few houses down had been accused of molesting several kids around their neighborhood, but got off on a technicality. When I asked her why she would tell me that, she said that now that I was a father I needed to know that sometimes you have to do the hardest things to protect your kids. I never believed her until I asked my mom about it several years later, and she had a full-blown panic attack. I've never seen my mother lose it like that. Scared the crap out of me. She wouldn't tell me if she had been one of the kids that got molested, but judging by her reaction I have to assume so. This some amazing Dexter crap right here. I saluted your grands though, somehow. I have a female friend who got paid $15k to send abusive texts, stamp on some 60-year-old dude's balls and frick him in the butt with a strap-on. My ex-girlfriend told me that she was into macrophilia, like she wanted to be a giant and crap and for me to be small and shove me into her snatch. It always freaked me out when she brought it up. I haven't told anyone except you fine people of Reddit. Death by Snoo Snoo. My sister-in-law doesn't think her third child, 5 years old, is her husband's. They were broken up around the date of conception. The husband has brown hair, brown eyes, same with their first 2 children. The third, the questionable one, has blonde hair, blue eyes. It's been a running joke so far. I honestly don't think the husband cares to know the truth at this point. The fricked up part? Syl has been caught texting other men. I think she's stopped now, but she used to chat with her brothers. My husband, friend, who has blonde hair and blue eyes, same rectangular head shape as the third kid. He is around 6'5" and questionable kid is huge for his age. The other fricked up part, my mother-in-law says she knows who the father is and it's not my husband's friend. It's whatever Nal Mayo. It's possible for a child of 2 people with brown hair and eyes to have a blonde-haired blue-eyed child, as both are recessive traits. It's a low chance, but not impossible. A stranger next to me on my flight to New York told me that he had explosive diarrhea and he needed the outside seat. And no, he was not a joking teenager, but he did run to the bathroom a few times during the flight. I'd rather hear that than be shat on. One of my aunts killed her husband one night after years of abuse. He was an aggressive drunk who used to beat the living crap out of her and her 2 children, so one day after he came home drunk and went through entire ordeal, he went to bed. She tried to get his boots off and he kicked her in the face, breaking her nose. And that was it, she snapped. Decided it was enough. She waited for him to fall asleep, took an axe and decapitated him. She then went to the police bloody-handed and with an axe and reported herself. She was sentenced for 10 years but was released after 6 due to the circumstances she was in. She and her kids lived happily and in peace after that. It was held as a secret for years within our family in order for people not to judge her. She died last summer and that's when I found out. Her daughter told me the story. I'm not condoning murder, but I don't blame her one bit. In 6th grade I was bonding with a buddy of mine. We were sharing secrets and both had a secret that we didn't like talking about. We both said a little bit about the secret and were convinced it was the same thing. I got him to go first and he quietly blurted his out. I had sex with my sister in a bathtub. His sister is like 6 years older than him to make matters worse. Our secrets were nothing alike. I felt bad so I just said, me too, to not make him feel completely lost and alone. So his sister raped him. A good friend had also a crush on her. Told me one day, after I asked her where those blue marks came from, that her dad sometimes gets so angry that he's starting to punch and hurt her. I was shocked because I know her parents and they were so chill, calm, lovely and all. But the most disturbing thing is that this whole beating their child thing is going on for so long that she and her little brother are already used to it. She still loves her dad and thinks he loves his kids. She would never call the police, and after her older stepbrother found out what happened and he wanted to punch the crap out of him, he got excluded from the family. I heard her mother will divorce and get out of the house. But like to see how normal it was for her sometimes to get punched by her dad had me so shocked. She is in delusion. Her brain is passing abuse as normal so as not to suffer from PTSD and going through a mental breakdown. That's how all humans work, but we do have different limits to abuse, and with the right conditions, denial can go very far. A friend was leaving a friend's house one morning. The friend with the house had 4 teacup Maltese. I guess when he was walking over covers on the floor he heard a crunch. When he lifted the covers he saw the little dog going into seizure and twitching all over the floor. He tried to pick it up, but at that moment the dog died in his hand. He left without saying a word. The friend that owned the house was asking everyone about his dog and was going to run an autopsy. Ended up not doing it because it would cost hundreds, which he didn't have at that time. When I was a toddler my mother remarried. I never understood why my dad hated mom's new husband so much until I was a teenager. Turns out my stepdad molested his previous stepdaughter. My dad was particularly miffed by it all because the former stepdaughter is also my dad's sister-in-law. My mother knowingly married the guy that molested someone in my dad's family and exposed his children to this man. And yes, my aunt and I shared a stepdad. Yes, it's weird. Yo, this whole story is a bunch of what the fuck from top to bottom. A coworker had been friends with my roommates at one point. The guy who owned the house got his sister drunk one night after a basketball game. The team was over celebrating a big win. The story goes that he turned his wasted sister over to the team who ran a train on her. This was supposedly done so they would like him. Feel like the police might have an opinion on this one. Someone I know, many years ago, was involved with a gang in a nearby big city. At one point she was held captive and raped by someone she knew. Her gang buddies found out and that man went missing, never to be seen again. Talking over 30 years ago, and I don't know any specific details, which I am glad about. Good, I hope his death was excruciating. When I was 12, my parents sent my older brother and I to go visit our aunt during summer break. One day out of the blue, my aunt pulls me aside and tells me that my dad had a family before us, but that his wife and baby had died during childbirth. She then told me not to tell anyone what she'd told me. It's been 10 years since then and I sometimes still think about what might have possessed her to tell a 12-year-old kid something like that. I still haven't told my mom or dad about it because I have no idea how to ask, if it's even my right to ask. But sometimes I have this weird feeling that I imagined the whole thing, or that my aunt could have lied to me about the whole thing. My cousin is not actually blood related to my aunt. She was adopted as a baby and my aunt never had the heart to tell her the truth. The worst thing is she has been blackmailed by a family member on a number of occasions for money, which has caused a lot of stress and resentment, where sadly my cousin takes the brunt of it. About a year after I broke up with my boyfriend of 2.5 years, a mutual female friend of ours told me about how he once molested her while I was still dating him. He once confessed he cheated on me with her, and more on that I forgave him. Also, at one party we were all at, they found themselves alone and he tried to strangle her. He, presumably, wasn't trying to kill her, but wanted to frighten her. Mission accomplished. A transient drug addict in Chicago admitting to ditching his friend, who had just been shot in a botched deal, and absconding with the drugs, crack. He told me this in a "isn't that wild" sort of way, not a "I feel bad for presumably allowing this guy to die" sort of way. To a homeless junkie in Chicago, that's probably not even the craziest thing that's happened to him that week. Not exactly disturbing, but I'm 95% sure my brother has had a baby that he has nothing to do with, that nobody knows about. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.